Hey guys, your buddy Choppadong here, and I'm going to make a video today catering more towards single entry GPP players and 3 max players. So we're going to go ahead and call this MLB Made Easy, and we're going to dive right in. I'm your buddy Choppadong, coach, small ball extraordinaire, DFSArmy.com. You know all the good stuff. Find it all in the description. Click the links, like, subscribe to videos, do all that stuff that you normally do. But let's dive in because I haven't looked at the main slate today. Threw some lineups out there for the early slate. They're doing okay. But the late slate throws us a little bit of a pickle. It's a bigger slate. So once again, smaller slates, we worry more about ownership. On bigger slates, we more or less just build for the best. But we can incorporate some of those principles on these medium-sized, not ultra-huge slates. And so the first thing we're going to do is open up our leverage stacks tool. And we're going to take a little gander at who the top, say, I don't know, 3 to 5 to maybe 6 best owned teams are, most owned teams. I happen to believe that following the chalk is the way to riches. I can fade the very, very top end of it when I need to, but I can play it on really, really big slates when I want to. If I'm looking at a big slate like today and I find Milwaukee. Where is Milwaukee? That is now lineups will change, lineups will come out, this confirmation, things will probably normalize a little bit. But for right now, Milwaukee's taking home the cake when it comes to ownership. I'm looking at Detroit, Baltimore, and I'm writing these down. That's why I'm talking a little bit slower. And I'm going to come up, to say, who's next? Dodgers. And then we'll come up here to Toronto. I make a few exceptions here and there. St. Louis, like St. Louis, I'm looking for the next guy below him. I have no confidence in St. Louis. Boston, probably a little better offense than St. Louis most of the time. Now, St. Louis probably go off tonight, make me look like a loser, as will some of these other lower-owned teams. But if I'm playing single-entry GPPs, I can usually play the chalk, get pretty close to the cash line, and then it's determined by my pivots. Why? Single entry, you get one shot. How many people are going to take a shot on the Texas Rangers and the Pittsburgh Pirates tonight in their 2 stacks? Not many. With 1 bullet to fire. Now in MME, when they're making 150 bullets, you will find those. 20, 40, 50, 150,000 people in the tournament. When those 2 teams do go off, which is very, very uncommon, but when they do go off, somebody out there has got it. People try to cover all the funky bases in those giant multi-entry tournaments, and so you have to account for that. But in the single entry, especially the smaller ones, if you're only playing a 49-man, 59-man, 150-man type of tournament, you really don't need to even think about Milwaukee or Pittsburgh tonight, because if they do go off, nobody in your tournament probably has it, and even if they do, it's 1 or 2 people, and you can still get really deep into the money without them. That's why we don't worry so much about it in single entry. We can play some fairly chalky lineups, use those matchups as what is probably the odds-on best shot to go off, and we can make our determination from there. So when I've written down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams, Milwaukee, Detroit, Baltimore, LA Dodgers, Toronto, St. Louis, Boston, now I can dive into my Domination Station Optimizer. And I can play these lineups just as is. I come down here, I already know roughly what this, let's find it out. Just to show you the little rhythm that I'm going to use. Let's make 10 lineups. Let's make about 10% random. Let's throw in 3 uniques, put it in tournament mode, and let's just run the machine. I'm wanting to find, actually I should run the machine now, when I set a barrier of a minimum projected ownership. That is going to tell me basically how chalky my lineups can be tonight, okay? So it made 200. I need to go up to 220 now. I'm trying to find the barrier. There we go. Probably about 210. That's about 10% of that's 20 points. 20% of that's 40 points. So if I come 40 points off of 210, that's 170. I can probably live within the chalk. If it doesn't build me enough lineups, I'll come back to it later. But let's start with 25 lineups. Actually, let's make it 50 so the percentages work out a little bit smoother. Jack that randomness all the way up. Keep it at 3 uniques, tournament mode, and now we're using 170 as our number. I haven't looked at any projections yet, haven't looked at anything yet. Don't care. Honestly, don't care. I'm going to randomly select teams. This is key when I'm only making a few lineups. And when I'm being very selective with my teams, these teams down here, I'm wanting to randomly mix them. Because here's why. I don't care which teams of these show up. When I deselect these teams and I come back and select Milwaukee and Detroit, Milwaukee Detroit, Baltimore, and LA. Baltimore, LA. And you may check weather. You know, I mean, I don't know if weather's a concern yet or not. Told you I didn't like St. Louis that much. Tonight, Toronto, and Boston. I'm going to do the same thing on this side over here. I just want these teams. These are the only teams I care about tonight. If some other teams go off, I'm going to bank on the fact that not many people are going to have them. Sucks. Won't be having a hammer tonight. Those hammer games go off. That's going to stink. But out west, in marine layer and bad hitting environments and stuff like that, outside of Arizona, hitting is not that big a deal out west. You don't really need those hammers all that often. So I can say, let's give me about 10% of every team over here, and let's not have anyone in more than, say, 40% of my lineups. That way I'm going to get at least 3 teams. Well, I can't have 10% of every. Well, I can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 70% of my lineups. And then the other 30% of my lineups that's unbuilt will be pushed into the favorite areas of these guys, right? Actually, let's cut that down. Make it about 5. 10's right. See, these numbers aren't important. These are all just ranges. And over here, same thing. I'm going to use probably about 30%. I want at least 4 of these teams mixed in, right? But I'm going to have it won't even hit that number probably because I'm randomly selecting. When I come up to my stacking formations on a big slate, I'm a 4x3 kind of guy. Maybe a little bit of 4x4. There you go. Let it run. I'm making more lineups than I need. I only need to use only 8 teams. So clearly, I need to probably loosen this number up a little. Let's try that. Get a little lower owned. Some of those stacks are carrying really low ownership, and when it uses those, there's not enough chalk the machine can eat to make up the difference and get me inside my minimum range. 24 teams, that's close enough, right? I don't need all 25 teams. I'm not using all 25. I'm using 1, 2, or 3, whatever. If I was playing a 3 max, if I was playing a single entry, I mean, I would go through here and I would just pick my favorite lineup now. That's not a stacked lineup. Don't want that one. There. Detroit and Dodgers. They're on my list. I'm fine with them. You know, may not want Yelich as a one-off. That's easy. Everybody likes Yelich. I don't. So I would uncheck him and rerun the damn thing. I just don't think Yelich is doing anything this year. He may have a big game. We may want to be exposed to him. But when I see the way he's playing right now, shorter still. But I don't care. Again, 18 lineups is fine. I've got plenty of lineups to choose from. So I come down here. It looks like I'm using a lot of Corbin Burns. Some David Price, I wouldn't do that. Some of these other pitchers I might not want to see in my lineups either. But you get the picture. I'm trying to narrow this thing down a little bit. And then I'm just going to go through picking my lineups. That's not even a stacked lineup, so I wouldn't consider that not stacked. There. Baltimore and Detroit with Willie Adams, Adames, whatever, and Eric Haas. You know, Corbin Burns, whatever. That's fine. Escobar, fine. 4x3 with Adames again, fine. If I want to get off of that number, I can build more lineups. I can lower my percentages. I can play around with the machine a little bit, but I've got some decent 4x3. This time it's flip-flopped, Baltimore and Detroit. Come down, there's Milwaukee and Baltimore. If I wanted to use those teams with Trey Turner as a one-off, that's pretty sexy. I don't like the David Price as my pitcher, though. So come down a little bit more. There's Toronto included. There's Milwaukee and Toronto with Adam Wainwright. Maybe I like that one. Tyler O'Neill is a power-hitting one-off. Fine. That lineup right there has just as good a chances to win tonight as any of the others. I don't care what anybody tells you. If I was using 3 lineups, I'd pick that as one. I might have picked, this one as one without David Price. Milwaukee, Boston. If I want Boston and Milwaukee 4x3 with Austin Hayes as a one-off, I could use that one. I could use Milwaukee and Detroit. I could use Milwaukee and Baltimore with Grossman as a one-off. Whatever I want to do. I'm not as concerned about the pitcher. I could be on a single entry type of slate. I could be a little bit chalkier at pitcher for sure and stay more in the Corbin Burns lineups. I might even go up here and look and see who is the chalk. It's Corbin Burns, Tyler Anderson, Kevin Gausman. I might just do something like this. Uncheck these guys and say, I want to be pretty chalky at pitcher tonight. So maybe some Montas, maybe some Wainwright, maybe some Skubal, maybe some Toussaint. He's had a good game. Not maybe against the Reds, whatever. And this is just all I'm going to do. If another pitcher goes off, I'm going to bank on the fact that he's going to be so low owned, he's not going to factor in and really matter. If I come down here and open this up a little bit more, let's drop this to 5%. Let's open this up maybe to about 40%. I'm just loosening the restrictions on these lineups a little bit. I can come down here to 60, and I can come over here and put on about 20% 4 by X. That's going to loosen things up a little bit. I can even drop down here in this 140 and come down to say 130. And now when I run those lineups, I should get, 25 or more lineups. What did I say I wanted to run? A max of 50. So this will open the machine up a little bit more, hopefully, and get me some more combinations. It's going to make me look like a liar here probably and not do it. But honestly, like tonight, that's really all you need to do is set your teams. Maybe your 5 teams are different than mine. Maybe you like so-and-so and so-and-so, and I don't. That's okay. That's on you. I think that you have just as good a chance to hit the nuts as I do with those teams. I just tend to use the chalk as my research these days because everybody's using the same numbers and everybody's pretty much landing on the same quality plays. Looks like we're going to get a good number of lineups here. Loosening up the machine just a smidge more for ownership is probably what triggered that. Who's my most owned pitcher? Remember, I unchecked David Price. Tyler Anderson, Corbin Burns, Adam Wainwright. There's a little bit of Gausman, some Montas. Fine, whatever. I'm not going to get too crazy. Those are all pitchers are probably viable. Anyone better than the other? I don't know. You tell me tomorrow night. Milwaukee is in a lot of my lineups. LA, whatever. Mixing with a lot of Milwaukee again. Looks like Milwaukee's going to be pretty important. If I wanted to fade, remember how dominant they were in ownership? If I wanted to fade Milwaukee tonight, I might either completely rule them out and say everybody's going to be on them and they have just as good a chance to fail as they do wind up in the nuts. I could do this. If I wanted to keep them just in my small stacks, I could have a smidge of them in my small stacks. And I can rerun the machine. It's going to give me, again, 4 stacks. The second stack just means Milwaukee will show up as one of these 4s, one of these 3s, or one of these one-off or twosies. That's what it's going to do. So as it keeps on building here, now I have cut back on my Milwaukee production because they were so heavily owned, and I'm banking on the fact that baseball is volatile and the chalk, yes, the chalk works more often, but I'm banking on the fact that it's not going to work tonight. I will have some of this in MME, but in a single entry or 3-max situation, I might fade Milwaukee off almost entirely. It's going to take a hell of a lineup for me, a hell of a boner lineup for me to really get interested. 37 lineups is fine. I just don't need everybody in my lineups, right? I don't care if I'm getting all of my lineups that I selected. I come down here now and I start looking. Who do I have the most of? I've got a lot of Burns. I've got Anderson, Gausman, Wainwright. Fine. Baltimore now is the #1 team, probably based on some randomization and removing Milwaukee. And Detroit and Boston are going to mix with. Fine. I had these teams on my list. So now I'm going to go through, again, unstacked lineup is probably a rounding issue. I don't need it. I've got 1, 2, 1, 2. Hey, that's kind of fun if nobody really goes off tonight. There's a 2 by 2 by 2. These can win. These are freaky, but they can win. 4 Dodgers, 3 Detroit. Escobar's a one-off. 4 Dodgers, 1, 1, 1, 1. 4 Toronto, 3 Orioles. Colton Wong is a one-off. I'd rather see a higher, more potential power type hitter standing alone as a one-off than Colton Wong, but I would use this lineup. Again, this lineup and this lineup have the same chances of going off in this lineup. It's just a matter of which teams. How do you pick between Toronto and Detroit or Toronto and LA? Dude, I don't know. On any given night, I can tell you one is probably more likely to go off than the other. And in baseball, it's not going to happen. So make a wide range of viable plus EV lineups and enter those. There's 4 by 3 with Willie Adames again. There's Colton Wong again, 4 by 3. You got Guerrero, Grichuk, and Corey Dickerson. If those guys don't hit, but Toronto still scores 8 runs, you still had the right team in your stacks. You just picked the wrong stack. How do you pick the right stack? Again, dudes, nobody knows. But this is basically how you do it. Pick 1 or 3 of these lineups or 4 or 5 of these lineups in these smaller MME or smaller multi-entry tournaments, and then expand your zones for the bigger MME stuff by incorporating more teams and more combinations. But narrow your stuff down to the very, very cream of the crop, and you can use ownership to do it. And this is how I would build single entry and 3-max tournaments for, DraftKings or FanDuel, either one. Peace out, homies. We'll talk to you real soon.